Matt, we're here at the Lake Orion Art Center, which is in downtown Lake Orion.
Mhm.
If you go to Lake Orion and you're in the downtown, you do have to walk about a block and a half to get here. It looks like an old house that was refurbished and turned into an art center. It's been here for a long time. I'm going to say a good 50 years or more. I'm sure that somebody will correct me on that when they watch this.
Yeah.
But it's really been a part of the community and has a major impact. And they have a big fundraiser every year. It's called the Dragon on the Lake Festival, which you've come to.
Yep.
I've been to. But Matt, we're taking a look at portraits in pottery today.
Yeah, I want to mention too that beautiful Paint Creek is right next door. And let's not forget the amazing Horseshoe Stadium next door to horseshoe throwing.
That's true. There's a whole association that has about 20 horseshoe, I don't even know how you refer to them, but little runs there, that they can have 20 games of horseshoe going on at the same time, just outside of this art center.
Really cool.
But in this art center, I'm just going to pan around and let's take a look at how beautiful this is. And tell me how you're feeling about just standing here in this room with all this great art.
Well, first thing it feels like is it makes me want to run home and start doing my own stuff, because when I feel like intimidated by the scale of talent, right? And I'm like, when we look at this piece right here, this sculpture, the portrait, it's splendid, and I want to go do something like that, you know. So that's
coming from a man that works diligently every day on his own work, but he still feels inspired by looking at others' work. So Matt, you know, we spend a lot of time in Lake Orion. We like to go to the Shaded Bloom Coffee, which is just across the way, and take a look at what they have as far as pastries go. We have tea. We did a podcast right there. So if you come to Lake Orion and you want to go over to Shaded Bloom and then also combine it with coming to this place, I think that's a pretty cool.
Also, there's the accent on art. I just got a bunch of pieces framed over there. That's a great place.
See, you told me something new. I didn't even know there was a place where I could get stuff framed. So we're just taking a look at the art today, you and I, and we've got portraits, which is definitely something that you and I are connected with in our work. And then we have pottery. Now, I'm putting together a PowerPoint of my work for a presentation that I'm doing coming up. And I included a couple pieces of sculpture. I have a bust in there, and then I also have a relief sculpture with some figures. And then I also have a standing or a seated figure, like a full figure in there. So those are a couple pieces that I did in years gone by where I was focusing a lot on sculpture. How about for you? How does sculpture fit into what you do?
You know, but what was it now? Like easily 25 years ago, I was encouraged to pick up some clay, and just the idea then was like always be creating. And even when you get one of those, at this time I didn't have a cell phone, and phones were still attached to the wall in your house. So when somebody called you up to try to sell you whatever set of steak knives, you could have some sculpture there and keep creating, even though that person was trying to steal your time. That's why this teacher would always talk to me, don't let anybody steal your time. So that's how I started to sculpt, and I would sculpt the characters that are in my books. So I haven't done as much as I would like, and that's why I was saying that there's some really good sculpture in here. I want to go do some of that. But that's how sculpture fits into this, that I create the characters that I'm going to draw. And then they sit in my studio and look at me while I'm creating other things. So then they become my friends.
And I've seen you also have your art students do that. Well, once they created character design, I've seen you have them integrate and implement a sculpture project related.
Which you do that too, right? You do.
So so we've both brought sculpture into our classes that are primarily more 2D classes than 3D, but we find 3D to be very instrumental in helping us in our perception of the volumetric approach to 2D.
Filling out the space. And there's a tradition to that too. What's it called? Maquettes. the artist Thomas Hart Benton, the great muralist, he would make these relief pieces, right? I'm not sure if he got any sculpture study, or he just decided this helps me visualize this to paint it in a more believable way. So it works.
I love that. All right, you heard it from here first, folks. Mr. Faulkner talking sculpture on our podcast. All right, we're going to start looking at some of the great art here at Lake Orion. Hey, Matt, we're looking at the portrait portion of our portraits and pottery here at Lake Orion Art Center. And as we're looking at this piece right here, one of the things that really attracts me to this piece is the overall composition. It is a portrait, so we're looking for, you know, the head, neck, shoulders. It gives us the right amount of proportion in the composition as far as like torso to the head and neck. And then it has the inclusion of a hat, which you don't always have to put in a portrait, but I think it's a nice addition, as well as the look of some of the drapery in here. And then the portrait portion, we're looking at the eyes, nose, mouth, well executed. They understand the use of light and shadow and the structure of the features, along with the media, which is what looks to me like a oil pastel, and therefore they're really capturing some of these nice subtle nuances that help us to see the light and shadow. This one part here I think is a little too bright, and in reference to the fact that the shadow is red and purple and that's coming over here, and suddenly we have this, unless there's a second light source, which I don't feel that over here. So that part's a little confusing to me, but overall, very well done. Let's hear your feedback about this piece.
Righty. So, yeah, what you said about craft and understanding anatomy, and also the way it's positioned on the page. Okay, all of those stuff functions really well. All right. The other aspect of it too is with this media, the person has a good handle on the rendering of the cloth, the rendering of the flesh tone. They're recognizable. I get what they are, and this person knows how to do that. And so that's another thing that I got to pay attention to. The last thing I'm going to say is I really like the coolness of that violet shadow there, and that separates it out from the warmth of the lit side of the face. And so you can see some of that violet in there in these shadows as well. So that's for me an understanding of warm, cool stuff and light source, and so that's good.
Cool. Why don't we walk over here since I've got the camera, and let's look at another piece that caught our attention. And why don't you start with this one, Matt?
Okay, so this one too is to me, paint is a movement towards three-dimensional, like when you're painting with oils as compared to drawing. And so this paint is starting to be it's a little bit thicker, and it's the other aspect of painting too is it feels like it's somebody you're rendering with light. And so when I see these highlights on the hair here, the warmth and the underlying tone in the hair, and then the really bright highlight there, I get that feeling of both sculpture and playing with light. Same thing with the light on the face. Really lovely interpretation. The warmth of the hair there, as it also is silhouetted against the background. So it would have been really easy to just make the hair as dark as that clothing right there, but they kept the warmth, and that's a really educated eye. That's somebody who's messed around, played with this material before, and and then the last thing I'll say about it, you know, it sits really well on the page. This person understands anatomy, and they've given us a really good presentation of this person as well as their personality.
Excellent. You know, it's fun to hear you talk about a piece like this. And as I'm looking at it, you're giving me food for thought. You know, one of the things that attracted me to this piece, besides just how well it's executed, is I really enjoy the thickness of the paint. So we like to use the word impasto when we refer to that. That meaning, you know, there's not a lot of turpentine if this is oil. If it's acrylic, you know, we use more water to thin out the paints. Here, you're using the paint a little bit more right out of the tube. And so it has a tackiness, and you can see it right on the surface. And we think about artists like Van Gogh, who did a lot of that, Rembrandt too, many of his works. So we think about, you know, some of the Renaissance artists, we think about Impressionists, and then they take advantage of like using the brush to just pull the color across. So you get that wispy feeling of the hair. And really, it's that feeling of the bristles of the brush that are making those marks, not necessarily taking a really fine brush and trying to get all that detail. And then here you can feel so many little paint strokes throughout. So there's a vibrancy of the material that you get in Impressionist work. And that vibrancy is what I think allows the painting to become alive on the wall. So there you go. That's my little feedback.
Awesome. Thanks, Eugene.
So Matt, we're looking at art here at Lake Orion for the Portrait Pottery Show. And we have a piece that we are discussing, and it is a sculpture of a head known as, we refer to it as a bust. So I'm gonna go over here to the bust.
Yes.
And what I really like about this piece is I enjoyed how the person who sculpted it really executed all the features. They also created a very nice finish. I'll just use my finger here around the shoulders and the plinth, or you know, platform in terms of what the piece is sitting on. And then the hair is executed very well. It makes for a nice contrast of the smooth finish of all of the figure work.
Okay, I'm going to take the camera and I'm going to talk. So, hello, Eugene.
Hello.
That's Eugene Clark, by the way. And I'm just the other guy. I'm Matt. So yeah, to what Eugene said, yeah, that to me, the person, one of the really satisfying things to me about this is the, we're seeing the hair is rendered one way, and then the face is brought up to a real kind of like sheen, it's almost like a patina that is really beautifully modeled, and that's lovely to me. But then also, I'm really getting a good feeling of, not a good feeling, a clear feeling. It's good too, but it's a clear feeling of the personality in this, both of the creator and of the portrait of the person. And that means that this person had a really great handle on anatomy. You know what I'm saying, Eugene?
Yeah.
Like, and the craft. This person knew how to use this material, and it really is really evident.
Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. One of the things that we look for when we're looking at a good sculpture is how the lighting, as it's coming down, how it's affecting the shadows. So sculptures can really become more effective if the person who's sculpting understands and recognizes how shadows will appear, which then in turn helps the piece to be read from a distance.
Look at the subtlety of that shadow of the eyebrow, and then the skull coming through right there, and the muscle that's like, you know what that muscle is. I don't know what that muscle is, but you know,
the orbicularis oris.
See, there he is, the master. And to me, that's really intelligent to pay attention to that kind of detail. The subtlety of the shadows in that is beautiful. So it's a good piece. All right, Eugene, here we are. What do you think about this piece?
You know, Matt, we're looking at the pottery portion of our Portrait and Pottery Show here in Lake Orion. And something that really attracted our attention, both of us, is this piece right here. Because, you know, in this show, we do have traditionally thrown pottery, which we love. And I own, and you own quite a bit of it. But when we see people in the world of pottery that start to create work like this, it starts to transcend into this sculptural plateau, which really elevates the media more to a higher art. Not to say that there isn't fine hand-thrown functional bowls and cups and plates, but what we see here is the artist attempting to show not only their skill and ability to work with clay as a potter, but to understand the world of sculpture. And one of the things that we see is not only the stackability of all these individual pieces, many of them were hand built, if not all of them, but the glazing and the colors, and then the way that it is creating this piece that almost has a totem pole like feel to it. So that is one of the things that I'm getting from this piece. What do you think?
Yeah. So there's, you know, the words we use in describing it, there's a playfulness to this, that what you were saying earlier about taking it up to another level, this piece starts to go into that realm of introducing subjectivity. So I can look, each person can look at this and come away with a different story or a different feeling about it in a way that some other kinds of sculpture, in this case pottery, you know, you get, it's functional, it does what it does. But this piece just points to all sorts of really interesting possibilities, and it makes me want to investigate it, figure out what the heck is going on with this. And so, yeah, also, you know, it's well done. The person knows their craft in this, and it's pleasing too. I mean, that's not always the most important thing in a piece of art, but I want to continue looking at this. I want to try to figure out what's going on, and that's important to me. So craft, expression, and just its place in the room. It makes me want to come over and look at it. So that's how I feel about this piece.